So a lot of people have asked, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what the heck is it like to be married to someone who is older than my mom and my dad? And the answer is simple. It's awful. No. I'm kidding. It's pretty amazing, and that's because 99% of the time, we don't even realize that we have an age gap. It's not something that's in our face and weighing on us all the time. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. We talked about it in an earlier video. It's only weird if you make it weird. This is extremely unusual. I am 6 years older than Lindsay's mom, 8 years older than her dad, and we get along great. It doesn't mean that that's not awkward every now and again, especially when Lindsay and her mom and I are together. Everybody just naturally assumes that her mom and I are mom and dad, and Lindsay is our daughter. The only thing that gets awkward is when people make that assumption and then they feel embarrassed and they want to apologize over and over and over again. And there's no need for that. We're accustomed to the assumption. We get why people assume that. Again, we all think about it, but we certainly understand why that is sort of the immediate assumption and immediate impression.
I completely agree. And I think the biggest reason it doesn't feel like there's an age gap is just because they say opposites attract. And while we do have some opposite qualities, I think for the most part, our personalities are pretty similar. We seem to complement each other well. We're not so opposite that there's all of this tension all the time, this bad tension. One example where I do feel there is an age gap is just when he'll mention something that happened like 30 years before I was even born.
Not that I'm a history teacher or anything.
No, not at all. Or he'll say something like, oh, when I was in grad school, and then he'll say something a date that was so long ago.
I got my PhD when I was 32. I can't help that.
Those are the times when I really realize it. Most of the time, I just think that stuff is cool, and I love history, and he was a history professor.
There's another piece here that I think helps make this work. Yes, Lindsay and I, while not 100% alike, do have a lot of compatibilities. The same is true when it comes to her parents. And, for example, I still play video games. Her dad is an executive in a video game company. Lindsay and I like sports. Her dad is a huge sports fan. There are things that her mom and I have in common. We love hanging out together. And I think at the end of the day, her parents are respectful enough of her choices that if she's happy, they're happy. And they had, their concerns at first, naturally. Probably do have some concerns. We get that. But they see that she's happy and they're willing to support her, willing to support me, willing to support us because they can see that it's working and that we're both happy.
Building on that, you and my parents have shared experiences more than you and I have shared experiences. Do you have an example of that?
Well, I do. And there's sort of a double tie-in here. So I took you and another student from our class to the Reagan Library because that was something that we would typically do during a semester. But during the previous 18 months, all of that had gotten canceled due to the pandemic. And so I wasn't at the university anymore. The pandemic was easing. The library had reopened up. You two specifically had said, oh man, I really wish we had that opportunity. And so I saw that as a chance to hang out. We headed over to Orange County. We took the tour of the Reagan Library. And then immediately afterwards, we went to your parents' house for cookies. But I just had this sense that it was really a meet the parents event. And it actually turned out to be exactly that. Now, before I do the double tie-in, what do you remember about the Meet the Parents Day?
This is something that he denies, and it absolutely did happen.
Nope.
And I corroborated with our other friend that was there just a couple of months ago. We were leaving the Reagan Library. We're in the parking lot. We're walking to my car, and I said, oh, geez, I wonder what my dad's going to think. And he stopped in his tracks and said, your dad's home? And
yeah, that might have happened.
All of the color left his face. He looked genuinely terrified, and that was something that I had never seen in him before. It was interesting as we're driving to the Reagan Library to my house. And I grew up in Orange County. And so I'm pointing out, oh, that's where, my cats died. That's where my grandpa died. That's where we got our first blah, 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 blah. And it felt like I was telling him this not as a friend, but you should start to know these things because I don't think you're going away anytime soon.
No, I'm not. And I remember you very proudly pointing out, your favorite grocery store, your favorite shopping places. And, it was super cute. And, your parents were welcoming and, very, very hospitable. The cookies were good. Your mom's a great cook. But then following up on that, a couple of months ago, the three of us, I think we did this on your mom's birthday in early September.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us went to see the movie Reagan. So again, Reagan Library, first time I ever met Lindsay's mom. And now here we are married a few years forward. And the three of us for her birthday are going to see the movie Reagan. And when we came out, for her mom and me, it was a shared experience in the sense of we lived through everything that was on the screen. Meanwhile, for Lindsay, it was history. It wasn't living history, but it was something that she'd read about in the history books. It was something completely in the past. She loved the movie, but not nearly as relevant to her or as real as it was for her mom and me. And so again, her mom and I are able to connect that way because she has a similar interest in history, just like Lindsay does, just like I do. And we lived through many more similar experiences than Lindsay and I have today.
To answer the question, what is it like to be married to someone that is older than my mom and my dad? It is just like any other relationship, I would say, maybe even healthier. And I will add one more point. Because Jeffrey is older and more experienced, he's already learned the do's and don'ts for relationships, I believe. And so
But more don'ts than do's, I'm afraid.
He is more mature than most boys my age, which I love that. And I know that not everybody does, and that's okay. Different strokes for different folks.
And it's ironic that she says that because, again, I still play video games, and we're on our way to Disneyland tonight. So chalk one up for maturity, right?
There you go.
So for me, and I'll sum it up like this. You don't have to have everything in common, but you need to have a lot in common. And then, hopefully all or any of the parents involved, yes, they want to be looking out for your best interests. They want to have their concerns. They're going to be on the lookout for red flags. And at the end of the day, hopefully your parents can be supportive by recognizing a relationship that works and two people that are happy and know that that needs to be valued more than any other concern or any other potential red flag.
Well said. Well, I hope this cleared some things up, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I also hope that the overlay of what we did at Disneyland tonight made it even more interesting. So please don't forget to leave a like. Please comment down below your favorite part and subscribe.